Hey guys, tonight we begin with something that sounds almost cute until you live it. You're the apprentice to a 17th century rat catcher in the bustling, wheezing, gloriously grimy streets of Paris. Romantic, right? Well, not exactly. You wake up to the gentle, loving sound of boots stomping on the wooden floorboards above you. Not just any boots, your master's boots, and he's already been to the tavern this morning. Twice. Your bedroom isn't so much a room as it is a slanted attic with a ceiling low enough to threaten any hairstyle above chin level. The mattress? A flattened sack of straw that smells faintly, and not so faintly, of wet dog and old cheese. The kind of cheese that lost a fight with time. Fleas hop across your legs like they've paid rent. Your blanket is a burlap sheet that somehow has both holes and humidity. The air in here doesn't move, it just sits. A heavy mix of smoke, mildew, rat urine, and something that might be pickled onions. But you haven't eaten pickled onions in weeks. You try not to think about it too hard. You're already sweating, and it's not even light out. There's no window. Just a wooden shutter with a crack that lets in a single, defiant ray of sunlight, and about 9 mosquitoes. You swat at one, miss, and hit yourself in the nose. Great start. Your shirt, technically, is hanging from a nail, but really it's just a fabric suggestion held together by 3 buttons: divine will and an ecosystem of lice. Pulling it on feels like re entering a wet argument with the plague. It itches before you even finish tying the strings. Your boots are stiff, not from structure, but from whatever you stepped in yesterday that hardened overnight. Something between resin and regret. You left them by the hearth to dry. They didn't. Now comes the fun part. Descending the ladder. Not stairs, mind you. A splinter-studded ladder that wobbles every time you shift your weight, which is often, because you're half starved and trembling slightly from sleeping with one eye open as instructed. Your master insists rats learn from your fear. Rats learn from the kitchen, or what passes for it, isn't much better. It's a corner of the main room, sharing space with the firewood, a chipped chamber pot, and a broom that's seen better centuries. You look around for food. There's a heel of bread on the table, hard as theology and possibly moving. You knock the bug off and chew slowly, trying to convince your jaw that this is breakfast and not a woodworking project. A jug of ale sits on the sideboard. Or maybe it's just water pretending. It's thin, bitter, and might actually be safer than the well outside, which is still under investigation after last week's green incident. As you eat, chew, gnaw, sandpaper, your tongue, you try not to think about the rats, but you do. Because this whole building is one sneeze away from being declared a mouse monarchy. You heard them last night, remember? Scratching, chittering, that weird noise that sounds like laughter, but wetter. They get bolder when the candle burns low. You saw one make eye contact with you last week. It didn't blink. You did. You lost. You stretch. Bad idea. Your back cracks like it's trying to send a telegram. Your hands are already raw from yesterday's sewer crawl. Your master had you testing a new trap design. It snapped shut on your thumb twice. He called it a learning experience. You called it mild bone trauma. Downstairs, you hear a belch and the unmistakable thud of a tankard hitting the floor. Your master's awake. That means you'd better move, fast. If he sees you dawdling, you'll spend the morning sweeping the gutters with your hands. Again, you grab your sack which smells of old leather and faintly of despair. It contains your tools: a stick with a nail on the end, called the persuader, a second stick without a nail, called backup, and a coil of rope you hope not to use today. There's also a crust of cheese you keep for bait, or emergencies, or both. Your master appears, shirtless, bearded, and built like a barrel that's lost interest in hygiene. He tosses a boot at you, not to give, but to wake you up. Too late. You were already awake. You duck anyway. He grunts something about Rue Mouffetard and the baker with the infestation. Your first job of the day. Congratulations. As you step outside, Paris greets you not with a smile, but with a thick waft of sewage, fire smoke, and stale butter. It's winter, but you're sweating. Not from the cold, but from the knowledge that somewhere, beneath these cobblestones and alleys, hundreds of rats are already awake too. Plotting, planning, possibly unionizing, and you're the apprentice, the bait, the brunt of the bad smells, bad tempers, and worse luck. You're not just the lowest rung on the ladder, you're the dirt beneath the ladder, possibly sentient by now. And this is just the beginning. You make it 5 steps before your master cuffs you in the back of the head. Not hard enough to knock you out, he needs you mobile, but just enough to remind you who's the rat catcher and who's the unfortunate soul holding the bag. He mutters something indecipherable about vermin quotas and mayonnaise theft, then sets off down the crooked street with you stumbling behind. His stride is confident. Yours is more of a cautious shuffle. Your boots still haven't softened, and now every step feels like you're arguing with the cobblestones. Rue Mouffetard curves ahead like a drunken question mark. One of the oldest streets in Paris, and arguably the smelliest, though that's a competitive category. The buildings lean inward like they're whispering secrets to each other. Most of those secrets involve mildew, unpaid rent, and what that butcher really puts in his sausages. As you pass an open window, someone dumps a bucket of something suspicious onto the street. You dodge left, narrowly avoiding a face full of, "You know what? Let's not guess." Your master doesn't flinch. He's been rained on by worse. He says it builds character. You suspect it mostly builds infection. You arrive at the baker's shop. The front smells like burnt crusts and sweaty raisins. Inside, chaos. A plump woman is screaming in a register only dogs and desperate apprentices can hear. Her husband waves a broom at a flour sack, which is visibly writhing. Your master grunts. Showtime. He shoves you forward. You hesitate. Just for a moment. Long enough to regret it. He kicks you toward the flour sacks. You land with a grunt and a puff of white powder that immediately sticks to the sweat behind your knees. Charming. The rats scatter. 3 dash under the counter. 1 darts across your boot. You squeak louder than the rat. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a part of you quietly wishes for a different life. Scribe, tailor, something with fewer teeth and less rabies. You draw your persuader, nail stick, meet destiny, and take a wild swing. You miss. You also knock over a barrel of breadcrumbs, which explodes like confetti at a rodent parade. More rats appear. They're faster than you, smarter too. You lunge again. This time you connect with something, possibly your own ankle. The baker gasps as a rat skitters across her shoulder and dives into a breadbasket. The rat pauses, stares at you, then absconds with a brioche like it owns the place. Your master is howling with laughter. After what feels like 3 hours, but is probably 12 minutes, You manage to corner two rats with the sack. You trap one. The other bites your thumb. You curse creatively inside your head. You've learned to keep your mouth shut after swearing in front of a priest last week. That earned you a lecture and a slap with a fish. You're still not over it. Your master retrieves the sack, weighs it like it's fine gold, and grunts approval. He tells the baker the fee has doubled. She argues. He farts. She relents. You, meanwhile, try to staunch the bleeding with a piece of bread crust. It's not sterile, but neither is anything else you've touched today. Afterward, you sit on the stoop while your master collects his payment, a jug of wine and a suspiciously meat-colored loaf. He tosses you the heel. You catch it. You think it's moving. You eat it anyway. He turns to you and says, "You learn fast. That's good. Means you might not die this week." That's his idea of a compliment. You treasure it. You file it away in the part of your brain labeled hope. It's not a big part. Mostly it's used for imagining what it might be like to own two socks. As you walk to the next job, some alley behind the fishmongers, you notice your master limping slightly. His boot squeaks. You wonder if he's getting slower, if maybe one day you'll be the rat catcher. Then you remember that the current job already includes being covered in sewage and despair. So promotion might not be the life upgrade you think it is. A child points at you and yells, "Le garçon de race," rat boy. You wave. He throws a pebble. It hits your shin. You resist the urge to throw something back. Your master says drawing blood from a minor is bad for business, even if they deserve it. As you turn down a shadowy alley, a mangy cat watches from a windowsill. You and it exchange looks. It squints. You squint back. You both know who's lower on the food chain. Spoiler, it's not the cat. Behind the fishmongers, you find the source of the complaint, a wooden crate hissing with fur. Your master sighs, cracks his knuckles, and says, "Apprentice, you first. Of course, always you first." You approach, slowly, carefully, sack in one hand, stick in the other. A rat leaps out like a furry cannonball. You yelp and flail. Your sack misses. Your foot doesn't. There's a sickening squelch. Your master claps once, not elegant, but effective. You wipe your shoe on the cobblestone. It's a losing battle. The smell will stay with you all day, possibly all week, possibly for life. By the end of the shift, you've caught 6 rats, lost 1 glove, twisted your ankle, and questioned your life choices approximately 27 times. But hey, you're still alive. That puts you one step ahead of the last apprentice. Historians still argue whether apprentices were chosen for their bravery, their desperation, or simply because no one else would do the job. One thing's for sure, the city needed rat catchers, and someone had to carry the sack. Today, that someone is you. You limp home after sunset, the sky bruised with the last splotches of orange, as if even the heavens got dragged through the muck today. The streets of Paris aren't any quieter at dusk, just grumpier. Vendors shout half-hearted insults as they pack up for the night. A donkey with a limp blocks your path and refuses to move. Honestly, same. You duck past a pair of aristocrats swanning by in powdered wigs and enough perfume to cause regional crop failure. They wrinkle their noses as you pass. Not because they recognize you, heavens no, but because you smell like a fermented disappointment. Back home, your master's already snoring in the chair, 1 boot off, 1 rat in his lap, still alive. You nudge it away with your stick. It squeaks indignantly, then scurries into the wall. Dinner is a stew. Well, Stew might be generous. It's mostly gray. The meat floats. You ask what it is. Your master shrugs and says, "Found it." You take small bites and hope for the best. Texture, rubbery sponge. Flavor, betrayal. You retreat to your attic, belly full of mystery, heart full of dread, and body full of flea bites. You lie on your straw pile, stare at the wooden beams above, and wonder if anyone in history has ever longed so deeply for a second pillow. Sleep comes slowly, dragged down by the itch in your sleeves and the gentle squeaking of what you really hope is just rats in the wall. And before you know it, it's morning again. The next day's training is special. Your master announces it like he's awarding you a knighthood. "Time to learn sewer work," he declares, with the gleam of a man who no longer remembers joy. You smile, then realize he's serious. The entrance is beneath an old bakery on Rue des Lombards, a heavy stone slab. You lift it together, and a wave of hot, wet air hits you like a sock full of sin. It smells like Paris's entire digestive system had a nervous breakdown. Your master hands you a lantern. The flame flickers nervously, as if it too wants to go home. Then you descend. The ladder is slimy. The walls sweat. The darkness wraps around you like an unwanted embrace. You try not to gag. You fail. At the bottom, the sewer, or as your master calls it, the rat's ballroom. It's a tunnel of stone and shadow, with a little stream in the middle. Let's not discuss what flows in that stream. Let's just say it's chunky and move on. You splash after your master, each step echoing like a sad drumbeat. Your boots are soaked instantly. So are your socks. So are your standards. Then you see them, eyes gleaming, watching. Rats. So many rats. On ledges, on pipes, in the water. One balances on a floating cabbage, like a king on a swampy barge. You swing your stick. The rats scatter. One hisses. Another throws a piece of onion at you. It's unclear whether it was defending itself or offering you lunch. You take one hesitant step forward. The floor responds with a squelch and a smell that may or may not grant you temporary clairvoyance. Your master wades ahead, tossing bits of meat into corners. "Trap bait," he says. You wonder where the meat came from. Then he hands you a live cage. Your job: corner a rat, trap it inside, and lock it. Simple. You chase one. It dives into a pipe. You follow. You regret that decision instantly. The pipe is narrow. Your shoulders scrape the sides. The rat turns, looks back at you, and smirks. It smirks. You swing your stick. It deflects with a tail flick and disappears. You slam your head on the pipe ceiling, trying to follow. You bite your tongue. You curse again, silently. The pipe echoes mockingly. Historians still argue whether 17th century Paris sewers were designed for drainage or some elaborate form of public punishment. Either way, it's working. Eventually you emerge, ratless, breathless, and 2 shades closer to becoming a damp raisin of a human. Your master catches 3. Of course he does. He has names for them. That one's Bertrand, old friend. He bit me once in '73. Bertrand hisses at you. You nod. Pleasure. The climb back up the ladder is the hardest part. Not physically, spiritually. You leave something down there. Hope, maybe. Or the last fragment of your childhood dreams. Back in the light, you blink. You smell worse. You feel worse. You are worse. But you survived. Kind of. Later that evening, As you scrape sewer scum off your shins with a spoon you're hoping isn't the dinner spoon, your master slaps a coin in your hand. One single coin. For your effort, he says. You stare at it. It's bent, possibly cursed, but it's yours. You hide it in your shoe. The rats won't find it there, probably. Then you go to bed early. Not because you want to, because your eyelids are staging a coup. As you lie back down, your nose full of sewer ghost, your legs twitching from the memory of crawling through goo, you find yourself chuckling. Just a little, because today you were brave, or stupid, maybe both. And tomorrow you'll do it again, because you, dear apprentice, are a rat catcher's shadow. And the sewers? They're just getting warmed up. The next morning, you're dreaming of bread that isn't soggy and cheese that doesn't blink, when a crash wakes you up. Loud, wooden, splintery. You bolt upright and bang your head on the ceiling beam. Again, that beam has a vendetta. You mumble something rude to it under your breath and stumble down the ladder, clutching your head with one hand and your shirt with the other. Your master is already awake. Shirtless, naturally, he's hunched over a table, fiddling with what appears to be a dead rat, a length of twine, and a bell. You don't ask. Today, he announces with dramatic flair, you learn gear maintenance. Your enthusiasm level hovers somewhere between damp sock and rotting turnip. Still, you nod, because you like your teeth where they are. He dumps a pile of tools on the table. And what tools they are. First, the rat sack, your primary weapon / prison. The cloth is so worn it could legally qualify as lace. Patches over patches. It smells like a mixture of mildew, defeat, and a faint hint of cabbage. There's a hole in one corner. You sew it shut, badly, with a fishbone and some twine. You name it stitches for morale. Then there's the catching stick, a plain wooden rod, usually with a hook or nail on the end. Yours has both. Your master calls it Old Reliable. You suspect it's caused more injuries to apprentices than rats. The nail is rusted. You file it down. Kind of. It now resembles a blunt question mark. Next up, rat cages. Or, as your master calls them, the clinkers. Wicker boxes with dubious locking mechanisms. You test one. It immediately springs open. You try to fix it. It now springs open louder. Your master watches this with a look that says, I don't know whether to help you or let natural selection run its course. You oil the hinges with leftover bacon fat. It works. Sort of. The next cage now smells delicious, which is either a feature or a very bad idea. Finally, you reach the charm stick. That's what your master calls it. It's just a broom handle with some string tied to it. But he claims rats are superstitious, and it wards off the ambitious ones. Historians still argue whether this was legitimate belief or just a very early form of sarcasm. Gear maintenance takes hours, not because it's complicated, because everything is broken in a new and imaginative way. One trap resets by biting your finger. One cage locks you inside. At some point, a rat runs across the floor, pauses to observe your tragic efforts, and continues on its way. You feel judged. Your master inspects your handiwork, grunts, then hands you something new, a leather pouch. Inside, dried goose livers. Bait, he says. Special order. High-end clients. You nod solemnly, as if you haven't just touched a goose's digestive history. You pocket the pouch, which is already leaking grease. You're heading to the Marais district, wealthier territory. The rats there, allegedly, speak better French. As you walk, children point and laugh. One yells, Pisseur de rat? You assume it's not a compliment. At the estate, the butler meets you with a pinched expression and a lace handkerchief over his nose. He looks at you like you're a stain on society. Your master, of course, beams and calls him Sir, with a sarcasm so thick you could butter bread with it. The job? Catch a rat that's been seen near the library. Yes. Books, velvet drapes, portraits, and you standing there with your stink sack and dried liver. You feel like a goat at a ball. You're told not to touch anything, so naturally, within 5 minutes, you trip over a globe, sneeze in the drapery, and knock a quill off the desk. Your master sets a trap near the fireplace. You set another near the bookshelf. You bait both with goose liver. The smell is haunting. Then you wait, and you wait, and you wait. Nothing. Eventually, the butler returns and clears his throat. Is the beast apprehended? Your master raises a brow. We're negotiating. You do not laugh, but you want to. At last, a rustle, movement. A rat appears, sleek, confident, like it owns the room. It pauses, sniffs, and goes for the bait. Your trap springs shut, loud, triumphant. You cheer softly. The butler faints. You consider adding rat-induced aristocratic collapses to your resume. After payment, a silver coin, and a look of eternal disdain, you leave. Your master whistles. You limp. But you caught the fancy rat. Victory. Later that night, you clean the tools again, this time more carefully, because you're starting to understand something. These aren't just sticks and sacks. They're survival. They're your armor. They are, in their splintered, grease-stained, flea-bitten way, yours. And for the first time, you kind of almost nearly feel like a real rat catcher, or at least someone the rats might one day take seriously. The next morning greets you with a gentle pitter-patter of rat droppings falling from the rafters. You don't even flinch anymore, that's growth. You swat the straw off your face, sit up and scratch at your leg. You stopped asking whether the itches were bites, rashes, or guilt weeks ago. Probably all three. Today, you're not hunting, you're scouting, which in master's language means poking around the nastiest corners of Paris to see what's cooking in the rat world. You suspect the rats are cooking you. He hands you a map. Well, a piece of parchment with some vaguely rat-shaped smudges and the phrase, "Worst bites here," scrawled in the corner. Very reassuring. Your assigned neighborhood? The slaughterhouse district. Of course it is. You set off alone, your first solo errand. The streets are already loud. Carts rattling, dogs barking, fishmongers yelling poetry at unwilling customers. Paris breathes in smells and exhales chaos. You trudge through it, sack slung over your shoulder like some medieval Santa Claus. But instead of toys, you deliver pest control and despair. The slaughterhouse isn't marked, but you know when you're close. The air thickens. It's meaty, metallic. There's something wet in the cobblestones that never quite dries. You step in a puddle that moves. You don't ask questions. You never ask questions here. Around the corner, pigs squealing, men shouting, a boy chasing a severed hoof for fun. A cat watches you from atop a barrel of bones, blinking slowly, judging your life choices. You start the scouting with a poke behind some barrels. Nothing. Then under a cart. Nope. Then in a drain. Movement. You lean in, a blur of fur, and nerve shoots out and dashes across your boot. You squeak. Again. This is becoming a pattern. You mark the spot on your map. You write, "Too fast, evil eyes." A butcher notices you scribbling and grunts, "Oi, rat boy?" You nod. He points with a cleaver. "Check the offal bins." They've been twitching bins. Great. You climb up, peek in, and see the most horrifying rat you've ever encountered. It's the size of a cat. No, a big cat. A cat who lifts barrels for fun. It locks eyes with you, then calmly climbs over the pile and disappears into the shadows. The audacity. You throw a rock, it bounces. The rat is gone. Your pride follows shortly after. Later, you try to describe it to your master. He smirks. Probably Gaston. Gaston? King Rat, he says, like it's the most natural thing in the world. He shows up every few years, bites through boots. Some say he reads. You stare. Historians still argue whether king rats were just large rodents, the beginnings of myth, or actual organized crime in fur coats. But you believe, because Gaston had presence. The next stop is a bakery's back alley. You know this one. You nearly caught typhus there last month. You poke around some crates. A family of rats scampers out. You don't bother chasing them. You're not here to catch, just count. You reach 10 before they vanish into a drain. You record it on the map. 10, bakery, smelled of almonds, suspicious. While crouched, you hear a voice. Oi, that your cheese? You stand. A lanky teen in patched trousers points at the block of bait you forgot on the cobble. It's bait, you say. He nods solemnly, picks it up, sniffs it, and bites it anyway. He says, chewing thoughtfully. Could use salt. You watch in silent horror as he pockets the rest and strolls away. Paris. By noon, you visited 5 alleys, 3 drains, 1 apothecary that definitely had more rats than herbs, and an abandoned puppet theater that was possibly run by rats. You return to your master with notes. He reads them with one eye and belches. Good. The Gaston sighting, though, might mean trouble. What kind of trouble? The kind with teeth, he mutters, then promptly falls asleep in a chair. So you spend the rest of the afternoon reorganizing traps. You've learned to test them with a stick first. Trust issues. Earned. You also attempt to sketch Gaston from memory. The result looks like a very angry sheepdog, but you label it clearly. Do not engage. Will win. That night, while you chew on something unidentifiable and crunchy, you think about rats. Not just the ones you chase, but their cleverness, their communities, how they sneak through the cracks, dodge death daily, and still manage to steal your cheese and your dignity. You hate them, you respect them, you may be becoming one, just slightly less furry. You knew this day would come. You just didn't expect it to smell quite this bad. Sewer duty. Again. But not just any sewer. Today, you're heading into what your master calls the belly. Capital T. Capital B. No other explanation, just a gesture toward the east quarter, and a muttered Godspeed. You pack your usual kit, sack, stick, bait, hope, all compromised. At the manhole, a breeze wafts up. That's a generous word. Breeze. It's more like a breath from something very old and very annoyed. You gag slightly. Your master laughs and says, that's the perfume of history. You descend. The ladder's slicker than usual. Either condensation or something with legs. Possibly both. Your boot slips halfway down. You recover. Barely. Somewhere above, your master shouts, don't die. Very encouraging. Once inside, the world disappears. The tunnel is darker than night and wetter than shame. The walls glisten with a sheen that moves. When you squint at it, you raise your lantern. The flame flickers. Nervous like you walk. Each step echoes in a way that suggests you're not alone. Not immediately, but inevitably. There's a distant scratching, too loud for one rat, too soft for a person. You grip your stick tighter. A trickle of something drips from above onto your shoulder. You do not look up. You've learned. Sewer ceilings hold no comfort, only regrets. You pause to listen. Nothing. Then a splash. You turn, just in time to see a tail vanish around a bend. You chase, because your master said, if you ever see one that size, follow it. But also, run. You'll know what to do when you panic. Helpful. You slosh around the corner. The tunnel widens. There's light. Greenish, faint, wrong. A hole in the brick lets sunlight leak through, twisted by moss. In that halo stands a nest. Not just any nest, a palace. Trash and bones woven into spirals, strings, buttons, paper scraps. Even, wait, is that a monocle? Then you see them, dozens of rats, sitting, staring, silent, and in the center, a beast, Gaston, or a cousin. Same size, same menace. Fur matted with what might be feathers, teeth like thumbtacks, eyes bright and disturbingly calm. You freeze. This, you realize, is not just a rat. This is a rat boss. It raises one paw. The others scatter, gone. No hiss, no squeal, just vanished. Then it sniffs the air and steps forward. You don't breathe. It walks past you, brushes your boot, stops, looks up. You look down. Time slows. It sneezes. You flinch. It disappears into a crack. You exhale. You mark the wall with chalk, belly, big one, monocle, possible nobility. Historians still argue whether Paris's rats formed nests of governance, or if terrified apprentices were prone to hallucination after prolonged sewer exposure. But you know what you saw. You back away, slow and steady. You take a wrong turn. Suddenly you're somewhere else. The tunnel narrows, the smell sharpens, the ceiling drops. You crouch. Then you hear it. A sound no rat catcher wants. Splash, shuffle, splash. Too regular, too big, not rat. Human. You round the bend and find him. Another rat catcher. Not one of yours. Rival guild. Brown cloak, big net. Eyes like someone who's seen the inside of too many pubs and too few soaps. He sees you, smirks. Fresh meat, he says. You say nothing. He eyes your kit. You're in my patch. You shrug. Didn't see a sign. There was one, he says. Rats ate it. You back away, slowly. He steps closer. You grip your stick. Yours is splintered, but loyal. He raises his net. Then, chaos. A screech from the wall. A blur of fur. Dozens. No, hundreds of rats pour from the cracks. You and your rival both yelp, duck, slip, swear. Silently, of course. The tunnel becomes a living carpet of tails and teeth. Your lantern falls. Darkness. You swing your sack wildly. It catches air. Possibly a rat. Possibly your rival's knee. There's shouting, then silence. The rats disappear as suddenly as they came. You relight your lantern. Your rival is gone. Only a boot remains. It's still warm. You take a moment. Then you write on the wall. Don't antagonize sewer factions. Lesson learned. You find your way out an hour later. Soaked, shaking, but not bitten. You think you see Gaston again on the way up. He tips an ear. You nod respectfully. Back above ground, your master says, "Find anything?" You nod slowly. He nods back, as if that's all he needed to know. You go to bed early that night. The walls creak. The floor moves slightly, but you sleep soundly. Because you've earned it. And because, honestly, you're too tired to care anymore. You wake up to find a rat in your boot. Not next to it, in it. It's asleep, curled like a cinnamon roll of pestilence. For a brief moment, you respect its audacity. Then it bites you. You shriek like an aristocrat seeing mud. You fling the boot. The rat flies, lands on the rafters, and scurries off, without even saying thank you. You stare at the boot. It now contains blood, betrayal, and a very large hole. So begins your day. Your master grumbles that it's time to upgrade your gear. This turns out not to mean new equipment. It means less broken equipment, scavenged from the belongings of a recently deceased rat catcher named Francois. No one's quite sure what happened to him. Something about a barrel, a goat, and too much confidence. You sort through Francois's belongings in a crate behind the inn. Everything smells like regret and vinegar. You pick out what you can salvage. A newer sack, less crusty. A thicker glove, left hand only. And a hat that looks like it once knew fashion in a previous life. You put it on. It's slightly too big and smells vaguely of onions. Your master nods approvingly. Looks professional, he lies. Then he hands you a new assignment. The fish market. Of course. The fish market is located at the edge of the Seine, and by midday, it's already a symphony of shouting, sloshing, and scales flying through the air like fishy confetti. The stalls groan under the weight of cod, herring, eels, and merchants with voices louder than God and less musical. The ground is slick with everything. You slip. Twice. The second time, you land in a puddle that makes your soul briefly leave your body. The stall owner greets you with a dead-eyed stare and says, "They're under the tables, stealing mackerel." One of them took a shrimp and looked at me. You nod gravely. You understand. That kind of disrespect cannot stand. You crouch, peek under the table, and find a rat. Just one, staring right at you, with a shrimp in its paws. It doesn't run. It leans back, chewing slowly, like it knows. You jab at it with your stick. It ducks. You jab again. It tosses the shrimp at you and escapes through a gap in the boards. You spend the next half hour chasing rats through fish guts. You catch 3, miss 9. You also fall into a crate of oysters. Twice. By the time you finish, your boots squish when you walk, and you smell like an abandoned wharf. Back at the inn, your master laughs so hard he almost swallows his pipe. "Remind me to send you to the perfumer's next," he wheezes. You don't laugh. You soak your boots in vinegar water. It doesn't help. That night, while oiling your stick, a task you now find soothing in a weirdly parental way, you think about your gear. It's not just sticks and sacks anymore. You've got a system. The left glove is for grabbing. The stick is for cornering. The sack is for ending the conversation. You even started tying garlic cloves around your belt. You heard it repels rats. Or possibly vampires. Either way, people give you more space on the street now. Your master teaches you to recognize rat signs next. Not magical ones, just trails of grease, droppings, and that faint odor of warm bread and terror. He shows you claw marks on crates, nests in rafters, a suspicious hole in a cheese wheel. Rats never just pass through, he says. They commit. You nod like this is sacred wisdom. Because honestly, it kind of is. He gives you a wax pouch filled with powdered chalk. You start marking walls as you patrol. Dots for nests, slashes for trails, circles for the weird spots where even rats don't go. Use your instincts, your master says, and if your instincts say run, run faster. One night, you gear up alone and go back to Rue Montorgueil. There's been talk of something big under the old bakery. You enter quietly. Your stick is ready. Your sack is tied. Your garlic is swinging, and in the dark, you hear it. A low growl. You freeze. Rats don't growl. You lift the lantern. 2 yellow eyes glint from behind a barrel. Then a cat leaps out, screeches, and knocks over 3 shelves before vanishing through the window. You sit down, slowly, and laugh. Not loud, just that soft, wheezy kind of laugh that says, Well, I lived. Somehow. Historians still debate whether rat catchers ever trained with cats. Some say they did. Others say the cats unionized and demanded better conditions. Either way, you're alone again. Just you, your stick, your sack, your hat that still smells of onions, and this odd blooming confidence. You're not good yet, but you're not scared anymore. Well, not as scared. And that, in Paris, is progress. You've heard whispers before, from windows, behind barrels, through coughs. The same word, muttered like a curse. Cursed, that's what they call you. You, the apprentice of a rat catcher. You, the kid who smells faintly of vinegar and sewer stew, dragging sacks full of these scratching nightmares through the city like some pestilent Santa Claus. Children cross themselves when you pass. Old women spit over their shoulders. A dog once howled just by looking at your boots. You try not to take it personally. Your master says better feared than ignored, but you suspect ignored might come with better bread. Today, you're heading to Saint Germain, a wealthier part of Paris, where the streets are wider, the perfume stronger, and the denial deeper. You arrive outside a tailor's shop, velvet in the windows, rats in the walls. The seamstress who called for you meets you with a face pinched tighter than your belt. I heard you carry disease, she says, arms crossed. You resist the urge to say, no, I just roll around in it recreationally. Instead, you smile politely. My job is to prevent it, you reply. She sniffs, literally, and waves you inside with a handkerchief. Inside, it's all silks and satins and mannequins wearing more lace than dignity. The place is spotless, or it looks spotless, but you know better. Rats love expensive fabric. They don't care about trends. They care about warm folds and things that tear easily. You crouch near a cabinet. There, droppings, tiny, telling. You lift the corner of a rug. More signs. Nibbled hem. The faint aroma of mousy mischief. You nod to the seamstress. They're here. She gasps as if you told her she's been cursed by the Pope. You set 2 traps behind the shelves, bait them with liver, and dust the floor with flour. Your master's trick. If rats come out tonight, they'll leave tracks. As you leave, she mutters a prayer. You bow, slightly, just enough to be civil, not enough to be trusted. You're used to it. Later, you pass a group of boys playing dice. One points. That's him, the sewer one. The others scatter. You sigh. Even the dogs cross the street now. Your master jokes that you're becoming a local legend. You'll be a ghost story by winter, he chuckles. And maybe he's right, because the more you catch, the more people suspect you brought them. After all, rats seem to follow you, sometimes literally. Last week, a small one trailed you from the market all the way home, sat outside the door like a cat, watched you eat, then vanished. You told no one, especially not your master. He'd call it a sign, or worse, a pet. That evening, you stopped by the cathedral, not for prayer, not exactly, but you like the quiet there. The way your boots echo between the stone pillars, the smell of wax and dust, and something older than either. You sit by the wall, and that's when the priest finds you. Thin man, thick robes, nose like a hawk. You, he says, rat child. You sigh. Yes, father? He squints. You've been seen in the alleys, near the plague house. You nod. You were. That place had rats. Too many. And it reeked of fear. I go where I'm needed, you say. He frowns. You go where no one wants you. You look at the floor. Maybe that's the same thing, you whisper. He doesn't respond. He just reaches into his sleeve and hands you a pouch. Inside, blessed salt. Scatter this, he says. They hate it. You nod, grateful. Then he adds, so do demons. Comforting. You go straight to the plague house. It's boarded up, abandoned, but something moves behind the shutters. You scatter the salt. Wait, nothing happens. Then a rustle. A shape darts across the window. It could be a rat or something worse. You leave quickly. Back home, your master is asleep at the table again. He snores like a dying bear. You sit by the fire, poke at the embers, think about how everyone avoids you now, except the rats. And you wonder, do they know you? Do they recognize you? Historians still argue whether rat catchers carried curses or just the burden of knowledge. Either way, both make you lonely. You take off your boot, check it for company. Empty. That's something. You lie on your straw pile, watch the flicker of firelight against the ceiling, and whisper to the dark, I'm not cursed, but the shadows don't answer. Not tonight. Morning starts with coughing. Not yours this time. Your master's. Wet, wheezy, echoing from the floor below like someone gargling gravel and regret. You descend the ladder, boots squelching slightly. You wash them, sort of, and find him slumped by the hearth, wrapped in a blanket that once had a color, but now mostly has stains. He waves a hand at you. Out today, he croaks. Solo job. You pause. You sure? He gestures again, this time more emphatically, and adds, take the big stick, in case they get bold. That's not reassuring. You pack your things, sack, gloves, extra bait, salt pouch from the priest, and yes, the big stick. It's just a longer version of your usual persuader, but it makes you feel like a rat-themed knight. Your destination, Rue de Marmousset. The city's poorer quarter, damp even in summer. Every wall leaks, every step squelches. The complaint? Rats seen near the tannery, as in where they boil animal skins in mysterious fluids. Great. You arrive to find the tannery owner, waving a bloodied apron and shouting at no one in particular. They're eating the glue, he barks at you, chewed straight through a week's work. I saw one dragging a rabbit hide like it was royalty. You nod, already sweating from the fumes. The smell here is unspeakable, like wet leather, vinegar, and someone's forgotten nightmare. You follow the trail, gnawed edges, paw prints in grime, and a heap of shredded parchment that once might have been an invoice or a confession. It's hard to tell. Behind the barrels, you find them. Not one, not two, an assembly. A swirling mass of rats, feasting on glue and looking strangely synchronized. You don't move. They don't either. Standoff. Then one rises slightly, squeaks, and the entire group scatters like spilled ink. You're left holding your big stick like a fool at a royal banquet with no invite. You bait 3 traps and set them quietly. Then you wait. You hear footsteps behind you. Turn. Just a boy. 8, maybe. Soot on his face. Curiosity in his eyes. You the rat man? He asks. You nod. He looks impressed. You scared? You think. Sometimes you admit. He grins. Me too. He drops a lump of old bread near your sack, whispers, for luck, and runs off. You pocket the bread. It's rock hard, possibly older than you. Still, it's the nicest thing anyone's done for you all week. Later, back near the cathedral, a woman calls you over. Veil, gloves, the works. Upper class. She gestures at her cellar, scratching every night. I'll double your fee if it's gone by Sunday. You nod, enter. The cellar is pristine. Stone floor, dry shelves, orderly jars. But the sound is real. A faint rhythmic scratching. From behind the far wall, you press your ear to the stone. Stillness. Then, tap, tap, tap. You recoil. Rats? Possibly. Or something else. You pry at the mortar. A small stone shifts. Behind it, darkness. You drop a bit of bread through the hole. Seconds pass. Then a sound, not a squeak, a gulp. You blink, you seal the hole. Back upstairs, you say, they've moved on. She pays you anyway. You're not proud, but you're alive, and that counts. Historians still debate whether these scratching walls were myth, echoes, or remnants of Paris's subterranean past. You don't need books. You have ears. And you heard something. On the way home, you pass a man selling roasted chestnuts. He offers one for free. You hesitate, then realize he thinks you're part of a street play. Wonderful costume, he says. The smell, so authentic. You thank him. Take the chestnut. Don't correct him. Eat it slowly. It's hot, soft, sweet. It tastes like not being hated for 5 minutes. You return to the inn, cheeks warm from fire and flattery. Your master is asleep again, one arm around a half-drunk bottle of cider and one foot in the hearth. You cover him with a blanket, quietly. Then you head to your attic. Boots off, stick beside your bed, salt pouch on the windowsill. You lie back, stare at the beam, your old enemy, and think. You're surviving, not thriving, not celebrated, but surviving, and maybe, just maybe, Paris is starting to notice. Your clothes are revolting, not as in upsetting to the senses, though yes, obviously, but literally, they are staging a slow rebellion against your body. Every seam itches, every thread resists. At this point, it's less of an outfit and more of a hostile textile environment. You peel off your shirt and it crackles. You sniff it. You regret that immediately. You reach for your spare shirt. It's technically clean, in that it's only been worn 3 times without a sewer accident. Luxury. Your boots, however, are beyond repair. You've patched them with waxed cloth, candle drippings, and last week, a piece of sausage skin. They now squelch even when dry. You are half convinced they have developed a personality. You go to your master. My boots are dead, you say. He eyes them. Nah, he says. They're just evolving. He rummages under his cot and tosses you a new pair. New to you, anyway. Stiff. Leather. One has a buckle. The other has a suspicious stain shaped like a parrot. You slip them on. They pinch in places you didn't know had nerves. Or walk it off, your master says, lighting his pipe with the apathy of a man who once caught typhus and called it a mile week. Out you go, boots creaking like floorboards in a haunted mansion. You head to your first call of the day. An apothecary with a suspected nest near the licorice root. Of course, the apothecary is a wiry woman with a hawk's nose and 9 jars of dried frog parts. She doesn't blink as you enter. They've been nibbling my herbs, she says. Which ones? Mostly the aphrodisiacs. Make of that what you will. You nod solemnly and get to work. You find droppings near the sassafras and hair in the crushed poppy bin. You bait 2 traps with lavender oil and wait. Meanwhile, you try to read the apothecary's labels. They're written in something between Latin and frustrated scribble. You see one jar labeled Goat Thoughts. You leave it alone. 2 rats appear. You trap one. The other dives into a pile of mint leaves and disappears with a squeak that sounds almost smug. Back outside, you run into her. Colette. She's not like other girls. She sells onions. Sharp eyes, witty tongue, smells of sulfur and confidence. She eyes your boots. You get those off a corpse? You grin. Not recently. She tosses you an onion. For luck. You pocket it. It squashes slightly. That's fine. Your next stop is the town square. A nobleman's servant has reported a rat sighting near the fountain. You arrive to find a dozen pigeons, a sleeping beggar, and one extremely bored guard. You check the benches, the bushes, the bins. Nothing. Then, movement. You see it. A rat. Huge. Gray. trotting casually past the marble fountain like it owns stock in the place. You freeze. So does the rat. You both stare. It tilts its head, then it nods. You blink. It vanishes. You don't chase it. You know that one. That's not just any rat. That's Gaston. Again, he's taunting you. Historians still argue whether animals can hold grudges. You don't need historians. You have boots and receipts. You mark the fountain with chalk. Get here. Again, watching. That evening, you return to the inn. You soak your boots in salt water. You restitch your shirt. You count your coins. 8 today. Enough for bread, not cheese. Still, bread is good, especially when it doesn't move. Your master nods at you. You're getting better, he says. Rats used to run from you. Now they pause. You smile. Then he adds, could be curiosity. Or maybe you just smell like home to them now. You stop smiling. That night, your dreams are strange. You're running through Paris. The streets are empty. The sky is violet. And rats are everywhere, lined up in rows watching you. At the front, Gaston, wearing a tiny crown. He raises one paw. You wake up, sweaty, confused, also slightly impressed by your own imagination. You sit up, scratch your head, and whisper, maybe I am cursed. From the rafters, a rat squeaks once. You choose to believe it's laughter. You wake up scratching. Again, this time, it's not just the usual symphony of flea bites and chafing seams. No, today it's something new. Something blossoming. You pull up your sleeve and find it. A patch of skin, red, bumpy, and alarmingly shaped like Corsica. It pulses slightly. You name it Bertrand because it looks like it has opinions. You go downstairs. Your master glances at your arm. Boils? He asks. You nod. He shrugs. Could be worse. You raise an eyebrow. He adds, could be plague. You check your armpits. So far, no black lumps. Progress. Breakfast is cold porridge and a slice of something that might have once been pear. You eat around the moving bits. Then it's time for work. Today's schedule is blessedly local. A butcher shop, a tenement crawl space, and an alley behind the perfumery. You pretend the last one is glamorous. It is not. First stop, the butcher. He greets you with a handshake so meaty it leaves residue. Basement's crawling, he says. Heard him last night, gnawing on the salt blocks. You nod, already regretting your presence. The basement smells like dried blood and ambition. The walls weep grease. Your boots stick with every step, as though the ground itself wants to keep you here forever. You find the rats almost immediately. Under the salting table, in a tangle of bones and what might once have been hooves. You trap two. One escapes into a ham and refuses to come out. You decide not to question it. Let the ham have its secrets. Back upstairs, the butcher pays you in sausage and something he calls meat juice. You accept both and wash your hands for longer than usual. Next, the tenement crawl space. The woman who summoned you has one eye and 17 cats. She claims she's been hearing whispers. You ask her to elaborate. She says the rats are planning something. You smile politely and crouch into the crawl space. It's dark, dusty, and tight enough to make you question every life decision you've ever made. You shuffle forward on your elbows, lantern clutched in one hand, stick in the other. Then you see it, a shrine, made of buttons, breadcrumbs, scraps of newspaper, and in the center, a drawing of a boy with a stick. It looks like you. You back out slowly. Historians still argue whether rats formed symbolic structures or if apprentices simply experienced vivid hallucinations caused by mold exposure. You decide not to share the shrine story with your master. You chalk the crawl space with a special mark, Kappa Inn. Final stop, the perfumery alley. The store itself smells like roses, citrus, and mild deception. The alley smells like feet and forgotten decisions. You find droppings near the rain barrel and a small pile of bones, arranged in a vaguely floral shape. You're not even surprised anymore. You bait a trap with a sliver of salted sausage and back away slowly. Behind you, a rat scurries past your foot, dragging what appears to be a ribbon. It stops, turns, looks at you, then disappears into the perfumery wall. You mark it as possible fragrance, cult, and leave. By the time you return home, your arm itch has spread. You show your master. He pokes it with a spoon. It's not weeping, he says. That's promising. You dab it with vinegar and bandage it with the least crusty rag you can find. Dinner is dry bread and broth made from whatever was in the bottom of the pickle barrel. You chew slowly and try not to think about your rash, or the shrine, or the ribbon wearing rats that may be starting a scented uprising. Instead, you polish your stick, you clean your sack, you reorganize your chalk. These things are solid, real, understandable. Your body may be falling apart. Your reputation may be somewhere between leper and haunted scarecrow. But your tools? They're loyal. You sleep uneasily. Bertrand itches. You dream of tiny hands rearranging bones. You wake up to the sound of your own name, whispered. You sit up. Nothing there. Just the rafters. And the sound of scuttling in the walls. The next day begins with a letter. That's unusual. You don't get letters. People barely speak to you, let alone commit thoughts to paper on your behalf. Your master thwacks it against your forehead to wake you. Royal seal, he grunts. Don't drool on it. You blink blearily. There it is, thick parchment, folded thrice, with a red wax seal bearing the unmistakable crest of someone important. Possibly royal. Definitely uptight. You break it open. Inside, an invitation. No, a summons. By order of the House of Tremblay, you are requested, nay commanded, to appear at the family estate to consult on a situation of rodent distress. You read it 3 times before your brain catches up. Your master beams. Nobles, rats, fancy ones. He hands you his cleanest shirt, which is to say, one with only a moderate number of stains and no active holes. You scrub your face with cold water, tame your hair with spit and wishful thinking, and polish your boots until they almost shine. Then you strap on your bag, your stick, and your most neutral expression. The estate is enormous. White stone, manicured hedges, and the kind of gravel path that was clearly designed to get stuck in poor people's shoes. A butler greets you with a face so pinched it might fold into a paper swan. He eyes you from boot to brow. You're it? You nod. The best they've got. He sighs. Follow me, and don't touch the tapestries. Inside, everything is gold, velvet, and quiet judgment. The lady of the house waits in a drawing room that smells of powdered lilies and absolute condescension. She doesn't rise when you enter. There's a creature in the dining hall, she says, and it squeaked at me. You nod solemnly. Unacceptable behavior. She gestures vaguely. Fix it. You make your way to the dining room. It's a palace unto itself. Long table, 40 chairs, 10,000 spoons. You crouch near the sideboard. There, movement. You lift the cloth. A rat. Sleek. Gray. Holding a breadcrumb like a chalice. It looks up at you, blinks slowly, then drops the crumb and scurries under the floorboards. You follow the trail. Grease on tile, a whisker snagged on a chair leg, and a single coin dropped behind the buffet. Odd. Underneath the sideboard, you find an opening. It leads to a servant corridor. Unused, you enter. The air is musty, heavy. With each step, you feel less like an intruder and more like a character in a very strange play. At the far end, a storage room. Inside, dozens of rats. Not just random, organized. One corner is stacked with food, neatly arranged. Another, Scraps of fabric, string, buttons, and in the center, on a pile of doilies, sits Gaston. You freeze. He looks older now, wiser, a little balder around the ears, but still him. He raises a paw. Two rats flank him like guards. You take one step back. One rat hisses. You drop your bait pouch in offering. Gaston sniffs, then turns away. And that's it. No charge, no lunge, just dismissal. You back out slowly, heart hammering. Back upstairs, you return to the drawing room. Well? The lady asks. They've relocated, you say. Won't be a problem. She raises an eyebrow. Are you sure? You nod. Quite. They found better accommodations. She waves a hand. You are dismissed. You leave with 2 silver coins and a small apple tart wrapped in linen. Outside, you sit on a step and breathe. You nibble the tart. It's perfect. Flaky, warm, lightly spiced. You think about Gaston, about the order, about the way he looked at you. Not with fear, not even hostility, just acknowledgement, like you were no longer the apprentice, but something else, a peer. Historians still argue whether rats possess hierarchical memory or simply react to repeated exposure. You don't need their debates. You felt it. Later that evening, your master claps your shoulder. Heard about the noble house, he says. Well done. You nod. Quiet. Processing. He tosses you a cup of cider. You clink it against his. You both drink. And for the first time since you started this wretched, itchy, surprisingly poetic job, you feel proud. Not clean, not noble, but solid. Like someone who knows how to navigate a dining room in a sewer and can spot rat royalty from 10 paces. You fall asleep easily that night, dreamless, still itchy but peaceful. You wake up before the sun, not because you're eager, because a rat bit your toe. Again, you yelp, kick, and watch it vanish with a squeak of victory. It doesn't even run fast anymore. It saunters, like it pays rent. You sit up, grumble something deeply unholy, and tie a rag around your foot. This is your third bite this week. Your toes are starting to resemble poorly preserved peaches. You shuffle downstairs, still groggy, only to find your master seated at the table, wide awake, sharpening a hook knife, with the kind of gleam in his eyes that suggests someone's about to do something profoundly inadvisable. Pack your gear, he says. We're going to the crypts. You blink. As in, under the church? He nods. Rats don't care for God. Neither, apparently, does your immune system. The church crypts are a legend. Not in the pleasant, oh, what a charming ruin way. In the, if you go down there, you'll come back with extra limbs or fewer friends way. You pack light. Just your stick, a candle lantern, and the sack you stitched last week with boiled twine and desperation. The priest meets you at the gate. Not the one who gave you salt. This one's taller, squintier, and more convinced you're a walking omen. They've been heard at night, he says, below the altar, scratching, sometimes chanting. You squint. Rats? Chanting? He shrugs. Could be Latin. You exchange a look with your master. He grins. It's probably not Latin. You descend stone steps so worn they feel polished by ghosts. The air grows thick, cold, and weirdly minty. The crypt is vast. Rows of pillars, stacks of bones. Candles flicker with a light that feels different. Yellow but tired, as if even the fire is considering retirement. You split up. You search the eastern chamber. Dust, echoes, and one perfectly intact loaf of bread sitting atop a skull. You do not eat the bread. Then you hear it. Skitter, skitter. Pause. You raise your lantern. A rat. Large. Black fur. One ear. Then another. Then 12. They line up along the wall. Still, you step forward. They scatter. Except one. It walks toward you, slowly. You tighten your grip on the stick. Then it stops, stares, and squeaks once. You blink. It turns and disappears into a gap between stones. You step after it and find a hole. Not large, but deliberate. Inside, a chamber. Small, low ceilinged, filled with scrolls? Yes, scrolls. Old, chewed, but intact. You pick one up. Latin, real Latin. You call your master over. He stares, whistles low. Rats don't write, he says, but they sure do decorate. The walls are lined with bits of cloth, crumbs, string, and wax seals. You realize what you found: a rat library. Not of knowledge, of hoarding. They've collected parchment, food, coins, wax. Historians still argue whether rats simply follow scent and softness, or if their patterns resemble basic curation. This room leans toward curation, possibly ambition. You chalk the wall: library. Do not touch. Respect. You and your master back away slowly. Above ground, the priest waits, wringing his hands. We found a nest, you say. We sealed it. Not untrue. He pays you in silver and prayer. You pocket the first. You shrug off the second. Back at home, your master slumps in his chair with a tankard and sighs. We're getting close, he says. To what? To understanding them. You blink. Rats? He nods. They're more than pests. They're a mirror. You squint. He drains his drink. They go where we go. Eat what we eat. Learn as we forget. They're our shadows. That's disturbingly poetic. You think about the scrolls, the hoard, the organized nests, and Gaston. Always Gaston. You sit on your cot and unwrap your foot. The bite's swollen, but clean. You apply vinegar and wrap it again, humming a lullaby you barely remember. Tonight, you feel watched. Not in a threatening way, more like someone checking in. You stare at the ceiling. From the rafters, a soft scuttle, then silence. You smile, because maybe you are cursed. Or maybe, just maybe, you're becoming fluent in rat. You spend the morning scrubbing your sack. Not metaphorically, literally. You kneel by the communal well, dunk the poor thing repeatedly, and watch the water turn a shade of gray so morally ambiguous, it should come with a disclaimer. After the third rinse, something vaguely worm-shaped escapes from the stitching. You salute it and let it go. Your master watches from a distance, arms crossed, chewing something that crunches suspiciously. Possibly an old crouton. Possibly a bone. He nods. Clean sack, clear conscience. You don't argue. You just wring it out and hang it over the inn's fence like a flag of pest control surrender. Today's job list is short but troubling. One name, the Marquise de Pin. You've heard of her. Everyone has. Widowed twice. Rumored to bathe in milk and conspiracy. Lives in a tower at the edge of Paris with too many cats and an alarming number of wax dolls. She sent for you specifically. Your master grunts. She pays in gold and sometimes teeth. You assume he's joking. You hope he's joking. You arrive at midday. The tower is tall, gray, crooked, like a finger that's seen too many winters. Ivy clings to it like gossip. You knock. The door creaks open by itself. Of course it does. You step inside. It smells like lavender, dust, and destiny. A voice floats from above. Come to the library, rat boy. You climb 3 floors. She sits in a velvet chair, surrounded by books and at least 4 cats, who eye you like an amused bouche. She's old, tall, and dressed in layers of silk that rustle when she moves. She doesn't greet you. She points to the hearth. They come from there, she says. You crouch. There are no droppings, no smell. But there's a warmth, an energy. You open the grate, peer in. Blackness. Then a glimmer. A rat, small, white, red eyes. It looks at you, doesn't move. Behind it, a second rat, larger, gray, one ear. Gaston? No, Gastonette. She squeaks once. You freeze because you understand the message. This place is ours now. You back away slowly. The Marquise chuckles. They speak to you, don't they? You blink. They behave oddly. She leans forward. They behave like people. The people no one listens to. You say nothing. She reaches into a pouch and hands you a bundle of dried herbs. Scatter this at their gate. It will confuse them or make them angry. Either is fine. You pocket the herbs. They smell like burnt licorice and regret. You place a small trap near the hearth. Ceremonial almost. Then you nod. She pays you in gold, and yes, one tooth. You'll need it, she says. You don't ask. On your way down the tower, one of the cats follows you. It doesn't hiss. It just watches. Outside, the sky darkens prematurely. You feel shifted, not cursed. Just noticed. You walk slowly. You scatter some of the herbs at the edge of the alley near the butcher's. Nothing happens. Then a rat darts out, sniffs the pile, and promptly sneezes 4 times. You both stare at each other for a moment. You whisper, "Bless you." It blinks, then runs. You chuckle. Once, softly. Back home, your master is examining a chart he drew on the wall in charcoal. It's not very scientific. Mostly arrows and circles and the phrase Gaston written 7 times. You add a new note, white rat, magic vibes, Marquise's fireplace. Probably don't antagonize. Your master scratches his beard. It's starting to come together. You ask, "What is?" He smiles. The rat web. You stare at him. Like a social web, you ask. No, he says. A literal web. Under the city. Old tunnels. Forgotten shrines. Cheese taxes. Hidden alliances. They're everywhere. You blink. He's not joking. You believe him. Because after today, anything feels possible. You fall asleep with the gold coin in your hand and the tooth on your shelf. Your dreams are strange again. A ballroom. Candles. Tiny feet dancing in formation. You watch unnoticed. Then one rat curtsies toward you. You wake with your hand over your heart. From the windowsill, a faint squeak. You smile. You're halfway through your morning biscuit. Stale, chipped a molar. Still better than last week's fish bread when the knock comes. Not a polite knock, a frantic one. You open the door to find a servant, pale as chalk and sweating like a roast pig. Lady Delacroix needs you, he gasps. Immediately. You raise an eyebrow. Rats? Dozens, he says. Possibly hundreds. One was wearing a shoe. Your master, who's just started pouring vinegar over his eggs, you've stopped questioning, grunts. Take extra chalk. And don't step on anything expensive. You grab your gear, tie your boots tight, and follow the servant through twisting alleys and into a quarter of Paris where houses have balconies just for show and fountains exist solely to annoy the thirsty. Lady Delacroix greets you on the steps. Her gown is satin. Her expression is thunder. There was one in my boudoir, she says, trembling. I was trying on slippers. It stared at me, then stole one. You nod solemnly. But that's not a rodent, she hisses. That's a declaration of war. You're escorted inside by 4 maids, all of whom seem convinced you're contagious. One mimes crossing herself with a candlestick. Upstairs, the boudoir is pink, painfully pink, like someone melted a candy shop and upholstered the result. You crouch near the armoire. Rat droppings, clear trail. Bits of lace shredded like confetti. You check under the chaise lounge. There it is, a single satin slipper, empty, but deliberately placed, and next to it, a breadcrumb, topped with a speck of blue sugar. You squint. You've seen this before. Bakery bait. specifically from Rue de Marmousset. You mark the spot with chalk, circle, arrow, scribble. Your shorthand for this is weird, but we've seen weirder. Back downstairs, you're ushered to the cellar. Lady Delacroix refuses to enter. She just points and says, "Fix it." You descend alone. The cellar is cooler, stone lined, smells like potatoes and perfumed despair. You hear them before you see them. Squeaks, shuffles, then a trail of slippers. 4, each one nibbled but intact. Arranged like stepping stones. You kneel. Behind the last one, a nest. Lavender sprigs, lace, a pearl button, and sleeping at the center, a rat. Small, fluffy, wearing a ribbon. You blink. It stirs, opens one eye, blinks back. You whisper, "Are you nesting?" It yawns. Then, from the shadows, Gaston. Of course, he doesn't move, just watches. You step back, respectfully. Historians still argue whether rats truly build nests with decorative intent or if humans project meaning onto random arrangement. You are firmly in the yes, it's a rat nursery camp. You back away, lay a trap at the door, not to catch, just to warn, and seal the cellar. Upstairs, you say, the issue is contained. Lady Delacroix arches an eyebrow. Permanently, you pause. They've started a family. She drops her teacup. You get paid in gold and cake. You eat the cake immediately. It's the fanciest thing you've put in your mouth since that one time you accidentally chewed on a perfume sachet. Back home, you recount the story to your master. He whistles. A nesting pair. That's rare. You nod. And she wears ribbon. He leans back. Fashionable offspring. You mark it on the rat map. Delacroix cellar. Maternity ward. Then, as you're packing up your sack for the evening, you find something tucked inside your cloak. A pearl button. You freeze. You didn't take it. It was placed. You look around the room. Empty, quiet. Then, from the rafter above your bed, a faint squeak. Almost a lullaby. You lie back on the cot. Sack under your head. One hand resting on the button. Outside, the wind rustles. Inside, you smile. Because today, the rats didn't just survive. They chose decor. The tavern smells like beer, onions, and long-term disappointment. You're here for lunch, sort of. More for shelter. Rain started again. Sideways rain. The kind that seems less like weather and more like divine punishment. You huddle by the fire, sack under your stool, stick resting against the wall. Your shirt's soaked, your boots are soggy, and your hat smells like it's developing independent opinions. Then it happens. The shriek, high-pitched, theatrical, and followed by the sound of glass smashing and several chairs falling. The barkeep bursts from the kitchen, pale and furious. "There's a rat in the stew pot." You sigh loudly. Heads turn, everyone turns. The crowd parts like soup. All eyes fall on you. You're not here as a customer anymore. You're now the on-call disaster technician. The barkeep grabs your arm. "Do something." You follow him into the kitchen. Steam, grease, and panic cling to everything. 3 cooks are on the table. One is crying. The soup pot is still bubbling. You approach cautiously. You lift the lid. It's empty. No rat. Just broth, suspiciously rodent-flavored broth. Then you see it. Tiny paw prints on the counter, leading to the shelf, down to the floor, and under the flour sack. You nudge it gently with your stick. A squeak. Then a blur of fur. Chaos erupts. The rat sprints across the kitchen, up a ladle, off a roast duck, and directly into the dining room. You chase. So does the goat. Wait, why is there a goat? Too late. The goat, which belongs to nobody officially, but lives here unofficially, decides it's a race. It barrels through tables, headbutts a barmaid, and launches itself into a bench like some horned cannonball. People scream, milk spills. The rat disappears into the fireplace. You manage to corner it behind a keg. It's not Gaston, just a regular nervous soup flavored rat. You catch it with the sack. Hold it up. Applause erupts. You blink. Someone hands you a mug of cider. Another slaps your back. The barkeep declares drinks half price in honor of the rat night. That title sticks for about 6 hours. You sit back down, a little stunned. The goat curls up beside you like a bodyguard. The barmaid sets down a plate of roasted turnips and says, "You're kind of a hero now." You respond, "For catching soup rat?" She shrugs. "Most excitement this place has had since old Pierre exploded." You don't ask. You eat your turnips. The crowd tells the story over and over, each time more exaggerated. By nightfall, the tale involves 3 rats, a flaming skillet, and you riding the goat into battle like some greasy paladin. Your master arrives halfway through your second cider. He raises an eyebrow. Rat catching or tavern theater? You gesture around. Bit of both. He snorts. Well, you made a name for yourself. He points to the chalkboard menu. Someone's added, "Today's special, Gaston stew." You laugh properly for the first time in days. Later, as the tavern quiets, you help sweep the floor. The rat you caught is asleep in a box. The goat snores under the table. You find a small button in your coat pocket. You didn't put it there. It's red, shiny, new. A gift? A warning. Historians still debate whether rats form systems of barter. You suspect this one's personal. You head home with the button, a sack full of admiration, and the vague sensation of goat hair in your socks. You fall asleep with your boots on, cider warm and slightly dizzy, and you dream of stew. Only this time you are the rat. You're dancing on the rim of the pot, waving a tiny ladle, and nobody dares stop you. You wake up to find your front door missing. Not open, missing. The hinges are there. The frame remains. But the actual wooden slab that prevents wind, gossip, and raccoons from entering your home? Gone. You sit up. You say nothing. You slowly put on your boots. One still damp from stew night, the other mysteriously filled with straw, and descend the stairs to find your master already awake, spooning onion porridge into his mouth with a total lack of urgency. He gestures vaguely toward the doorframe. "Rival catchers," he mutters. "Probably the Crutch brothers. You've heard of them, Leon and Felix Crutch. Not actually brothers. Not actually good at catching rats, but very good at theatrics. Known for planting fake infestations and charging triple for emergency exorcisms." You sigh. "Why the door?" He shrugs. "Symbol. Intimidation. Or maybe they needed firewood." He slurps. You spend the next hour hammering together a new door from old crates and one unfortunate signboard that used to say "Sale on goose livers." It creaks, leans slightly left, and smells faintly of failure, but it closes, mostly. As you're cleaning up, a kid runs in breathless. "Big trouble. Over by the wine quarter. Crutch Brothers got a nest. Says it's the biggest in Paris." Your master narrows his eyes. "Let's see about that." You arrive at the wine merchant's just in time to see a full street performance underway. Felix, tall and gaunt, stands on a crate, waving a sack above his head and shouting, "Behold, the queen of rats." Leon, round and red-faced, is holding a rat. Except it's not moving. It's very clearly taxidermied, poorly. You whisper to your master, "Is that a marble glued to its eye?" He squints. "And cinnamon sticks for whiskers." You approach the crowd. Show's over. You say calmly. Felix scoffs. Who are you? A street urchin with a goat scented hat? You nod. Yes, and also the one who actually catches rats. Murmurs ripple through the onlookers. Leon wobbles forward. Jealousy doesn't suit you, apprentice. You raise your stick. Care for a demonstration? Felix laughs. You think you're better than us? You smile. I know I smell worse. And then, as if on cue, a real rat dashes out from under the wine barrel. Chaos. The Crutch brothers panic. Leon shrieks and falls into a bucket. Felix tries to trap the rat under his hat. It escapes, of course, and runs straight up the leg of a nobleman's trousers. That man will never recover. You, however, calmly kneel. Extend your gloved hand and scoop the rat gently into your sack. Applause. Real applause. Even the rat seems impressed. You stand, dust yourself off, and bow. The Crutch brothers slink away. That evening, back at the inn, your master clinks his mug against yours. Well done, he says. First public humiliation. You sip. Feels oddly refreshing. He grins. You're not the apprentice anymore. You pause. Let that land. The sack rests by your feet, empty now. Your door is slightly crooked, but standing. And your name? Spoken differently today, with less mockery, more respect. You sit by the fire, stretching your fingers. One knuckle is bruised. Your left boot's sole is flapping again. And someone, possibly you, has drawn a tiny rat crown on the map wall. You don't erase it. You just smile. Historians still debate whether rival rat catchers practiced sabotage or merely suffered from bad luck and worse reputations. In this case, the evidence includes a fake queen rat with pasta whiskers and a bucket full of regret. You fall asleep with a warmth that isn't from cider or blankets. It's from knowing you weren't just better, you were true. And in Paris, that's rarer than a clean alley. It starts with a cough. Not yours, not your master's. The city's, Paris is coughing, not literally, of course. But the signs are there. Quiet streets, shuttered windows, children kept indoors, market stalls covered in extra cloth. Even the pigeons look tense. Word spreads faster than fleas. Plague, again. Not official yet. But it never is. Not at first. Just whispers, behind hands, a priest lighting extra candles, the baker charging more for bread that suddenly tastes like sawdust. You notice it in your clients too. They don't greet you anymore. They just point. Downstairs, cellar, kitchen. You nod, do the job, leave the coin on the barrel, and don't wait for thanks. One morning, your master coughs into a rag. He hides it quickly. You don't mention it. Instead, you clean your gloves 3 times, lace your boots tighter, and walk to the tannery district, where the rats are bold and the air smells like boiling regret. At the tannery, the foreman won't let you in. Orders, he says. No outsiders. Plague season. You hold up your sack. Rats don't care about orders. He hesitates, then lets you in, but won't look you in the eye. Inside, the rats are worse. Fatter, hungrier, less afraid. You corner 4 under a skin-drying rack. One growls. You whack it. Miss. It bites your glove. You fling it off. It runs, straight up a ladder, and disappears into a loft you didn't know existed. You mark it in chalk. Tannery loft. Hostile. Back outside, the sky is gray. Paris is always gray, but this is heavier. A sky with too much on its mind. A funeral bell rings, distant, muffled. You follow the sound. A cart rumbles by. Covered bodies. A priest mumbling. A woman crying softly. You step aside. They don't see you. You're the rat catcher. You walk where people don't look. Later at the cathedral, the priest who once gave you salt meets you at the steps. You've been busy, he says. You nod. He hands you a vial. Camphor oil. Dab under your nose. Can't hurt. You take it. It smells like spicy trees and burning hope. Then he says, "They say it's the rats again." You don't answer. Because you know, not just rats. Not anymore. There's something organized, coordinated. Rats moving in patterns, relocating together, gathering. The shrines, the nests, the pearls and buttons. Even Gaston, you feel it in your chest, like a violin string tightening. Back home, your master is asleep in the chair. You watch him breathe, count the seconds between rises. He's pale, you cover him with a blanket and light the fire higher. That night, you check your tools. Oiled, ready. You line your shoes with rosemary leaves. Folk trick. Probably nonsense. Feels comforting anyway. You sleep in your clothes. Your dreams are crowded. Rats. Tunnels. A banquet beneath the city. Tiny toasts and silent speeches. You wake before dawn. Outside, the bells toll again, and the city coughs. Historians still argue whether the 17th century plague outbreaks were truly driven by rats or fleas, or simply human error wrapped in superstition. You're no scholar, but you've watched a rat carry a cork and seal a hole with its own tail. You believe in more than fleas. You've never been this far below Paris, not by choice anyway. It's late afternoon, or possibly early morning. Hard to tell underground. You and your master are crawling through a stone tunnel so narrow even the rats seem to stoop. The air is stale, the lantern flickers, and somewhere behind you, water drips with suspicious regularity. "This used to be a Roman aqueduct," your master whispers. "Now it's rat headquarters." You nod grimly. It began with a map, old, crinkled, drawn in something that might be ink or something you'd rather not identify. The Marquise d'Epine gave it to you 2 days ago, wrapped in velvet and vague threats. "Follow the trail," she'd said. "You'll find what they're building." Building, that word has haunted you since. Rats don't build. They burrow, they nest, they hoard, but they don't build unless you've been underestimating them. You reach a junction, a fork in the tunnel. One path smells like wet coins and mushrooms. The other, cinnamon. Cinnamon. You glance at your master. He sniffs, nods, and gestures toward the spicy path. You crawl for what feels like an hour. The space opens. You stand. You're in a chamber, a true chamber. Stone walls, low ceiling, lit by dozens of tiny flames, candles in nutshells, wedged into cracks. And in the center, like something out of a fever dream, a structure made of twigs, bones, buttons, coins, bits of ribbon, a crown fashioned from a spoon. You freeze, because you know who built this. Gaston. He steps out from behind the altar. Yes, altar. That's what it is. A rat cathedral. He's not alone. Dozens of rats line the floor, silent, still, watching. You don't move. Your master breathes. They're not just nesting. You nod slowly. They're worshipping. At what? You're not sure. A god? An idea? Themselves? Gaston climbs the altar. He stands tall, for a rat, and raises his paws. Two others bring him something. A button. The pearl one. From Lady Delacroix's cellar. He places it gently on the altar, then turns to you, not in challenge, in recognition. You step forward. Gaston squeaks once. Your master pulls your sleeve. "We should go." You hesitate. Then you bow, slightly. A rat curtsies back. And that's it. You retreat. Slowly. No sudden moves. Back through the cinnamon tunnel. Up the aqueduct. Into air that smells like cabbage and fear. Outside it's dawn. The city is quiet. You and your master sit on the curb. Say nothing for a while. Then he mutters, "I think we saw their parliament." You nod. Or maybe their temple. He runs a hand over his face. What does this mean? You sigh. I think it means we're no longer in charge. Historians still argue whether rats possess religious behavior or if humans simply project spirituality onto everything that organizes neatly. But you stood in a room lit by rat made candles and watched a coronation with a spoon crown. You believe something changed. That evening, you patch your boots in silence. Your master writes notes in his ledger, adding an entirely new section labeled Rat Diplomacy. You sleep poorly. Dreams of squeaking choirs and tiny processions haunt you. But somewhere, deep down, a strange calm settles. You've seen the heart of it. And you were not harmed. You were welcomed. Kind of. You try to quit. You really do. The next morning, you fold your shirt, scrub your gloves, hang your stick neatly beside the door. You even write a note, retiring from rat matters. Thank you for the trauma, and nail it to the post. Your master watches, arms crossed, chewing something leafy and unidentifiable. You sure? He asks. You nod. I'm out. He shrugs. Rats won't like that. You shrug back. They can write a letter. You spend the day doing ordinary things. You eat warm bread with butter. You sit in the sun like an unpaid philosopher. You watch clouds. You nod at pigeons. You even try skipping a stone across the Seine. It sinks immediately. That's fine. Not everything needs to succeed. And for a few hours, you feel human again. But by evening, it starts. A small pile of dried berries appears on your windowsill. Then a button. Then a feather. Then a coin you lost last week. Gifts. You don't accept them. You sweep them away gently. The next night, there's a message, scratched into the wall with claws or something very determined. Come back! You don't. You patch roofs for a neighbor. You help a shoemaker carry crates. You even try writing poetry. It's bad, but heartfelt. Then, one rainy morning, you open your cupboard to find a rat sitting on your spoon. Just sitting, not chewing, not stealing, just staring. It tilts its head. You sigh. Let me guess, you say, emergency? It squeaks once. You reach for your sack. It's still by the door, still packed, still waiting. You glance at your folded shirt, your half-written poem about cheese, and the window where raindrops race each other towards the ledge. You put the shirt on. Boots too. The rat hops into your hood. You step outside. The rain doesn't bother you anymore. Your master nods when you arrive. Thought so, he says. You don't answer. You just start walking. The report is vague. Rats in the bakery again. Something about flour tunnels. A bread heist. You head there, and as you do, you notice people nod at you, some wave. A boy calls out, Rat night. You almost smile. You kneel near the oven and find the tunnel. It's neat, precise, smells faintly of rosemary and ambition. You chuckle, because you realize you can't quit. Not because they won't let you, because you don't want to. You've seen things. Shrines, families, governments, possibly a rat monarchy. And more importantly, you're part of it now. Not a king, not a god. Just the translator. The middleman. The bridge between humans, who panic at every squeak, and rats, who steal slippers with surgical precision. Historians may never record your name. They won't know the Parliament of Gaston, or the Cinnamon Tunnel, or the Slipper Nursery. But that's fine, because under the city, in the quiet, in the dark, in the world few ever notice, you are remembered by squeaks, by buttons, by breadcrumbs, and maybe, just maybe someday, by a song sung in a tavern about the rat catcher's apprentice who didn't just catch rats, but listened. And the rats? They sang back. The fire crackles gently now. The stick is propped quietly against the door. The boots, still muddy, rest in a corner like tired sentries. And you? You're lying back on your cot, arms behind your head, staring at the wooden beam above. It doesn't drip tonight. The air is soft, cool, smells faintly of tallow and bread. The city murmurs outside, soft wheels, distant bells, the hush of something big and old breathing beneath the streets. You trace the map on the wall with your eyes, the chalk lines, the strange notes, all those places where you've knelt, watched, waited. It doesn't feel heavy now, just yours. You think about Gaston, about the altar, about the time you danced with a rat in your dreams, wearing a spoon for a helmet. You smile because you're not just tired, you're at peace. You know this life. It knows you, so you let your eyes close. You listen to the faint scuttle in the rafters. Not alarming, familiar, reassuring even. And as sleep draws near, it feels like slipping into a soft tunnel where everything makes sense and nothing's chasing you. Not tonight. Tonight, you're part of something older than maps, softer than fur, quieter than dust, and far, far deeper than anyone above will ever understand. Good night, Rat Knight. You made it. You're home. End of script. Sweet dreams.